Welcome to Creative Piecemeal Podcast, a podcast for creatives. I'm your host, Tammy Takeishi. Join me for compelling conversations with artists, actors, authors, musicians, and other creatives about the impact of the creative and fine arts in their lives and our ever-changing world. Thank you for listening. Hello, and welcome to Creative Piecemeal Podcast. I am Tammy, and today I am with a new guest on this show, Barbara Howlin. She's an actor and writer who's been a guiding creative for the last decade, and she's taught actors at AMAW and various studios around the Los Angeles area. She's also a Reiki Master, guiding people in energy expansion and healing. As founder of the Howlin Hive, she leads groups and one-on-one sessions to help us all embrace creative healing for a life of play, flow, and exploration. And she's known for her groups Guiding the Artist's Way, human design readings to open, flow, and embrace inherent gifts in creating, and energy healing to realign with Reiki and one-on-one guidance. Other podcasts you may have heard her on include The Whole Artist, Moonlit Path, In the Moment with Anthony Mendel, and The Moving Spotlight and the Ash Taba Show. And of course, now here, Creative Piecemeal Podcast. So welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Tammy.
I'm excited to have you here. I always love having guests who are in fields that I've not explored as much. We've had a couple of actors and actresses, but I don't think I've had anyone who is quite specialized as yourself, who does that as well as Reiki Master. So I'm really excited to sort of delve into that. Before we get there, of course, origin story. How did you get your start and what inspired you?
It can be so loaded, can it? But to me, I always go back to what was the art that first inspired me. And I have to say my kiddo self was just such a fantasy sci-fi person with all escapism. So I would say the top three things that really got me into it and let my imagination fly was The Never-Ending Story, The Princess Bride, and Labyrinth growing up. I think those were really it. And I mean, think of those three movies. They really showed me, oh, I think anything is possible as an artist when we tap into imagination like that.
Oh my gosh. I think we're kindred spirits. Are you my missing sister? I really have three sisters. One of them's you.
Perfect.
Right? I love those movies. Okay.
Me too.
Now, bonus question, like anything specific, like a certain scene or a line or something that it made you feel?
I suppose they're all different when I think about it, but not really. It feels like whether it's, even The Princess Bride is from a kiddo's point of view as Fred Savage, baby Fred Savage. Mm-hmm. I think it lets us see the world through our own inner kiddo, regardless of how old you are. And that's really what I feel also is like a root of a lot of what I'm doing. Like creativity and play in and of itself is healing. And I think we are all creative to tap in with our own inner kiddo and not lose that. I feel like is at the root of all those movies.
Yeah, I love that so much. Some of the things of what you do, there's some overlapping philosophies in my field, which is music therapy, creativity, sort of releasing inhibitions and boundaries and just being in the moment, in the moment with music, in the moment with play, in the moment with playing instruments, in the moment like what you do and the creative flow. I love that sort of synergy that happens.
Mm-hmm. Me too. That freedom of expression that we feel when we get in that flow state and the brain turns off and something else, something deeper taps us like intuition and inspiration. Yeah.
How long have you done Reiki, and what are some things that you're looking forward to doing that you're allowed to talk about in this year and moving forward?
I've been doing Reiki for just over 5 years, actually. That was a pandemic thing. I will say everything, obviously, that I'm doing, I have to walk the walk myself. And I was quite burnt out as a vocational artist, as an actor, guiding actors, specifically what I was doing. And because of the pandemic, I went, something has to change. That's when everything shifted and I started this business myself, the Howlin Hive. But Reiki was the first step that I needed to slow down, just as we were saying, to realize how much pent up energy and lack of expression there really had been for me. So it really shifted everything. And I'm always excited to dive in with new people on that. And it's really surprising what our body can hold to need to tap in and let that out, express it, and align it.
Yeah.
And for this year, what you were saying, all of these modalities I do think are so connected. And I'm finally in my own beginner's mindset. I'm writing a book about all of this. So I'm editing my book right now. I can talk about it, but it probably won't still be out for quite some time. But that's the process I'm in right now.
Oh, nice. Well, that's exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Best of luck to you with the book writing process.
It's a big one, right? And again, I think being creatives, having to be in beginner's mindset over and over and over again, I could have been like, I've written a film. I know how to do that. I don't know. Books are so different. So I'm very humbled and just trying to be in the trust right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I know you mentioned that you've pivoted to Howling Hive, but do you ever have the opportunity or interest to go back into acting yourself in any fashion?
I am still acting. Yeah.
Oh,
So I'm
wonderful.
I'm very much doing the non-linear artist life, which is many different things. I am still acting, I still have my reps, but the beautiful thing is I just feel such less pressure around what I was so in tunnel vision as like, I'm an actor, which means you're just an actor. When really I kept feeling the intuitive pings to write like I'm doing right now, to do all these other things. And I would sort of ignore them and white knuckle and discipline myself with artistry, which of course is the opposite of the flow. So I love acting. I always will, but it's not my only one passion now. So that feels really freeing.
That's wonderful. And I'm so glad to hear when people discover new passions at different points in life, because, it doesn't have to be something that you pick up in elementary school. You can pick up something as an adult and just dive right in and absolutely love it as though you've done it your whole life. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yes, I love that so much. And I actually think that's the point. It's so affirming. We're constantly learning new hobbies, new things. Isn't that it? To be in exploration forever. That was actually the first episode of your podcast I heard. I forget her name, but was the woodworker who came to it much later in life. It was beautiful.
Thank you for supporting and listening, by the way. And yeah, that's one of the reasons why I love having a variety of people on, is because you never know when a guest might inspire a listener, and that listener, such as yourself, is in a creative space, and you might take that and it inspires your clients, or students, or, what have you.
Absolutely. And that was what's interesting too, really. The pandemic had shifted so much and getting back out there now. We need so much community. We need so many different artists, I think, to be holding up mirrors for ourselves. So whether that's podcasts or taking the classes or getting in a Zoom community, I feel it. We all need it.
What is something that you do for self-care that you find has really resonated and been able to help you be more in the space that you need to in your work?
I think there are many things now that I always say fill up my well. I think why I was burnt out at the beginning of the pandemic was the well was empty. The well was tapped of life, and realizing we have to constantly be filling the well, to be drawing from it. And there are many things, like I'm really on a painting kick right now. I am not a quote good painter. I have not taken classes. It's never going in a museum, but that feels freeing. That fills my well to get past the product or productivity guilt. And I love it. And the other main one is always just walks. I need to, again, move and metabolize that energy. And my favorite place is just finding a new park or being out in nature. To me, is that pure creative spirit, and that really fills me up.
That's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Are you someone who's a reader? Are you a reader?
Oh, yes. What are you reading?
Well, I just started The Lincoln Highway by Amor Tolls. He's more of a literary author. I read A Gentleman in Moscow by him earlier in the year, and I just devoured it. And then they made like a TV show with Ewan McGregor. I haven't seen it all the way through, but I just loved his work that I immediately went out and bought all of his other books. But something that I'm really looking forward to is there's this Instagram page called We the Urban, and they always have these affirmations that are very positive and so real, and sometimes I feel so seen. Even though I know that it's made for the masses, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's me right now, and I'm bawling while looking at Instagram. But they've got a book out, pre-order, so I just pre-ordered it, and I'm so excited. So
Amazing. I love that account and I didn't know that. Isn't it so phenomenal the thing of us connecting like this? I had just been searching podcasts on Instagram and found this. It is both something for me to be mindful of because it's very addictive, but we can just connect with people and people have sold their artistry and then gotten book deals from posting on Instagram. It's amazing.
yeah, yeah. And I
Ugh,
think I'm trying to remember what it was called. I think it was called like I don't know who needs to hear this, but
so
yeah,
good. What a title.
right? Yeah. So I have a very specific reading question for you though.
Okay.
What is something you read this year that has inspired you? And what is something that has challenged you?
I love reading. I mean, it all does inspire me. I read, speaking of just the worlds that I love to live in, not just in movies, I read The Night Circus. And if anyone has not read that, it is the most fantastical, magical realism and the world building and everything. I mean, it just took me to another planet and is a book that I know I will read over and over again when I just need that fix of what I was describing, like totally lit up my imagination and I couldn't put it down. That one really inspired me. And what's one that challenged? Well, one I just finished that did challenge me. It's interesting. Was actually Anne Patchett's The Dutch House. And love Anne Patchett. This one was very specific. I feel like it chose me at this point in my life. Again, beautiful world building, and I love the way she writes. But it has these themes around motherhood and a mother who leaves. And because I now have a 2.5-year-old, oh, and it's a whole different world, Tammy, being a creative and doing these things, like I actually think it triggered me. It brought up a lot of beautiful themes and things to question around motherhood and these roles and these ideas around it.
Wow. Yeah. Isn't it just interesting the way a book will come into your life or a poem or a song or a piece of art and then you're like, really right now?
That's what it felt like. I went, oh, am I going to keep reading this? Yes, yes, it chose me for a reason.
If you're okay with me getting a little bit personal, you mentioned you've been a mom for a few years now. How has that changed your outlook and or creative process? Do you suddenly have to get creative really fast?
Sometimes I will say that's actually what I share with people. I was sharing in my group in my class today the idea of micro creations, which is if you have 20 minutes, have your pad there and your colored pencils, like do something to keep that creative antenna up because that's what I've had to be doing when I used to like take long, artist dates. I guide people in the artist's way and it's such an important thing. But those used to be day-long artist dates and what a luxury that was. And even if we can't do that, I realized there's always time to like up that creative antenna. We just have to really commit to that for ourselves. And being a mom, it's just been that. I think time, we all have different limiting stories that keep us from creating. And for me, the mom guilt is so real. So constantly letting go of that and realizing I want to be setting an example, being an artist and showing this is possible and doing all of it. So we have to make time for it.
Yeah. My late mother was a painter.
Oh,
And I remember, coming home from school, 4, 5, 6 years old, and it always lit me up inside to walk into the living room and see her painting because it was just, she may have felt mom guilt. I mean, who knows for sure, but it always made me happy to see her create and to see her happy. And I used to be like, you should paint more. Like I legitimately remember having these memories.
that is so affirming. Thanks for saying that. And so beautiful. I do think it's that. I will say, I very much feel like I was brought up with the encouraging words to go do it ourselves. But if we don't see our parents who may not be artists or just didn't give themselves the time and the space to be doing that, we really want to be like our parents, I think. So leading by example, that's such a great example. Oh,
Yeah. And then sometimes I would just like sit there with like little Crayola watercolors and things like that, So we would watch Bob Ross together back in the day. Yep. Like, right? It is so soothing. And they have it on like the streaming channels now.
yes, I would rather have that on just as the background noise of the day than anything else, for sure.
Yes. Yes. It's like the best thing. Like, it's like ASMR before there was ASMR, like the way he smacks the brush on the metal pole,
Yeah, so good.
I love that you mentioned that you're taking up painting. Is there anything else creative that you would love to try just for the heck of it?
My friend and I were actually speaking the other day. We saw a sign for a shoemaking class. And these are where you go, what? Really? Should I go? That one intrigued me, but I don't think that would be it, honestly. But it just goes to show, like, There are classes for everything. Anyone can sign up for a masterclass pass if we're able, or just go on YouTube for free to find these things. But the one that I really would like to get in the studio is do an actual pottery wheel class, because I've never done that. That'd be fun and get messy.
Oh.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
If you've been feeling burned out, stressed, overwhelmed, or exhausted, the resources and courses at the Self-Care Institute are here to support you. The Self-Care Institute was founded by Dr. Ami Kunimura and provides support for individuals and organizations with burnout prevention, burnout recovery, and stress management. I've personally taken a few of these courses and found them to be super helpful, both professionally and personally. The care you give yourself matters just as much as the care you give to others. But if self-care is difficult for you, you're not alone. And the Self-Care Institute is here to support your well-being, resilience, and sense of fulfillment at work and at home. For more information, visit selfcareinstitute.com or go to the show notes and click on the link. It depends. I must say, I did a ceramics class in high school because I had to take an art course. And I discovered that while I have immense patience for humans, I have zero patience for clay.
So good.
Yeah. It was like the most frustrating thing ever for me. But that's honestly, it's any kind of hands-on craft. I always have I'm very tactile, and I always have this desire to make something. It's in my bones, right? Knitting, whatever. But my patience level is always zero. I just can't. Scrapbooking, knitting, it doesn't matter. It does not matter. I can Legos, absolutely not. I will not. Puzzles, no. I can't. And yet I will sit down and practice and play a musical instrument, which takes a lot of patience. So I'm like, what?
Isn't that it? It's just so wild. We think artistry certainly is not this monolith. It could be so many different things under the sun that lights certain people up, because I've tried a lot of the things you just described too. Doing the artist way for years, and knitting. Oh my God, no. I really did commit to be okay, just keep going, because it takes time to learn. That wasn't it. Legos, no. They're fun with my daughter. Puzzles, I don't think so. But painting and feeling totally free, and again, not even having to do it for some betterment or learning, just getting messy, I think, is usually an antidote to a lot of my perfectionist tendencies. So it feels good.
What is one of your favorite things about yourself?
I think that may have changed. The words that are coming to my mind. I think now, yeah, right here, right now, one of the things I love the most is redefining what strength is, and really seeing as my life's journey, softness is the real strength now, and really embracing that. And of course, being a mom, that has just fed that even more, and really wanting to create themes from that, and just keep accepting that for myself.
Oh, Barbara, that is just beautiful. I love that.
Thanks, Tammy.
You're going to make me cry over here.
We're crying.
Lovely.
Sisters.
That's right. I've laughed a lot on the show. You might be the first one to bring me to tears.
Isn't it such a lifelong journey creating, though? I mean, isn't that what's so amazing? I was I needed to stop for a second and check in with myself right now, because it's constantly new lessons and new themes and new things coming up. Yeah. So
you talk about how you're writing a book. What is something that is surprising you about the writing process, and something that you find joyful?
What I think is surprising me is, again, this is very much pulled from Julia Cameron's The Artist's Way, maybe the softness and strength that I was talking about. I do feel that I'm trusting now being more the conduit than the author, sort of throwing it up to the universe, going, okay, use me. What is this going to be? Because it's a lot of pages. It's a lot of words compared to films that I've written. And I do feel that for the first time, there's been a different level of like surrender to that. And what's come out is sort of surprising. And I'm trying every day as I'm editing now to not judge, going like, but is this my voice? Is this? Because speaking and writing in a film, it feels so different with characters and everything. But writing in the book, just as myself, I've been kind of surprised by the verbiage and how things have come out. And it's really just trying to trust that.
Nice.
And what was the second part?
What is something that you find joyful?
I find so joyful actually just sharing people's success stories, I suppose you would call it, from my groups, from everything I've been doing all of these years in the book of, I think we all need those examples, like the mirrors I was saying held up to us. So like really recounting those as I've been writing this is just lighting me up even more about the possibility of growth and healing and change for all of us and the wild things that these people have gone on to create and find some freedom in. That's felt really joyful, just remembering all of those stories.
Oh, that is nice.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to, whenever it's done, reading it, promoting it, all of those good things. So.
Thank you.
Because I love even though it's virtual, so it's almost like ironic, but you still have such a positive, wonderful energy. Like I can feel it through the screen,
Thanks, Tammy. That's good to know, too, because that's mostly what I'm doing. But that's what's amazing. The pandemic really changed everything. And I kind of haven't gone back, even though today was my one in-person class that I still do here in Los Angeles. But the rest of it's on Zoom. But that hasn't really gone back. It's amazing to do something like my Hive Mind group of the Artist Way with somebody who's in Paris and somebody even woke up in Australia, somebody who's across the country in Kansas, So it's felt really amazing in that. It's a whole new world.
That's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any plans to offer any other classes or, what can listeners and anyone else interested, what can they look forward to in addition to your current repertoire?
The next one that just is out and is about to start is called Hive Mind. And it really was born as a part mastermind group, part unblocking everything I do with people to really affirm while Artist Way groups are also here, and we'll still be doing those on demand when there's a call. The beautiful thing about the Artist Way and groups I've been doing with people is it just sort of unblocks and opens a new doorway of possibility. But of course, we know as artists, then we have to get to work. We have to start like walking the path on the other side of the door. So I really wanted to form a new group that is a mastermind group to unblock first, dive in, see what our emotional true north really is right now, what we truly want as creatives at the root of all of it, and then come up with a game plan and take the actionable steps every week together with loving accountability and guidance and hit a creative goal at the end of 3 months.
That sounds really nice.
Mm-hmm.
I might have to look into that one of the times that you offer it, because it's like, I could always benefit from something like that.
I think we all can. That's the thing. We need not only accountability. I don't know. That even sounds a little rigid to me. We just need community to be like, I'm sure there will be a week for everyone in this where they're like, I didn't do it. I didn't do any of my action steps. And it's like, great, show up to the group anyway. Let's talk about it. How come? What was coming up? What's the blocker that we're still going to? And just feeling affirmed in that and not where I used to go, like guilting myself or shaming myself for that, to just like keep moving forward.
This past spring, I did something called the self-care. It was like a self-care course by the Self-Care Institute. And it's mostly aimed at music therapists, but other creatives can do it. And I was just so surprised, pleasantly, of course, by how much emotion and how much I really needed that virtual once a week meeting for 3 months and communing with fellow creatives, specifically other ones in my field, and talking about self-care in our field. It was just absolutely phenomenal. And it's one of those things where like, I don't know if you can like redo it, but it was just great. And your course that you're talking about, the Hive Mind, sounds very similar in what it offers, like that community and that ability to just care for yourself and bring that creativeness to the space. And it just sounds fantastic, but more of a broad spectrum and from a different angle, so to speak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so beautiful. The group you did too. And well, this is sort of the point too. People kept coming back and everyone can forever, but redoing the Artist Way journey, which is 3 months with me. And I realized a lot of them also still were unblocking, but not fully taking the steps, like still sharing multiple times. I want to do this one woman show, but I'm not doing it. And I also just think a lot of what we're sharing in Hive Mind is affirming, I think it's the Rumi quote, as you walk on the way appears. We are never going to be perfectly healed, perfectly all of these ideas, even the wellness culture, like addiction that we have now. I think it's owning that creativity in and of itself is healing when we step into the process. So doing that in tandem, unblocking and creating is so important. And I'm sure that group wants you back. I'm sure you could return. I think we all need to return to these things over and over and over.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's just, I'm so grateful that you offer those things in your expertise for the creative world. I can only imagine how the waves that you're making, so to speak, in the creative world. That's fantastic. I mean, that's why I podcast. I think there's shared goals there, wanting to make a positive difference, wanting to inspire.
Yes, I love that. Thanks, Tammy. And also that trusting, again, I sometimes will spin. We definitely live in a culture and algorithms and these things about the numbers or the idea of the outreach. But like you're reaching important people with this podcast. It hit me and us trusting the enoughness of that. And I just hope we all just keep sharing and doing it. It's important.
Yeah. I can't wait to dive more into what you offer. Like, I don't always, for example, with classes like that guests offer, I don't always do them because I try to remain impartial, but like, I'm like, oh man, I really want to sign up.
Great. I can't wait to see you.
Like, I'm super eager.
Great. I think that's it too. I will just say there are so many offerings, and a lot of what I'm talking about with the unblocking and the other things I offer, which includes Reiki and human design, is really checking in. It's really just getting back to a sense of embodiment, because I think so many of us are cut off from the neck down. We really have so much more going on spinning in our head with anxiety and these things, but getting back to our gut, getting back to that embodied sense of intuition, we know the things that ping us that you're like, that's the class, or I'm going to take pottery or this, and just like trusting our illogical intuition more.
Yeah. Yeah. Would you say that a lot of what you see is like overthinking, people overthinking and then trying to like stop the overthinking?
Yes. There's a lot of words we could put to it. Again, I always joke I'm a recovering perfectionist for life, which is why doing things like painting or something that have nothing to do with the end product and just let me get messy and enjoy the process, I think is the main antidote, that I want people to really be stepping into that process, because we also can have like a very, I think, active addiction now, again, to I'm not enough yet in some way. I'm not good enough. I'm not healed enough. I haven't taken enough classes. I haven't this. And I think, again, the answer is just start creating. Just get messy and find what feels good. Again, the feeling for you, and get out of the head. Go for that walk, put on the music, like you're saying, dance around and be like, actually, I do want to go do this thing, and trusting our gut with it.
I love that. If you're willing to share, did you have any barriers, either internal or external, to reaching where you are in your career and the mindset that you have right now?
Yes, many. If anyone were to say no to that, it'd be like, tell us everything. How is that possible? I think the word that I just kept using, perfectionist, definitely from just my background in my home growing up, I think there was a lot of perceived, of course, I didn't really have it, but control to feel safe, genuinely, and why the first chapter of The Artist Way is titled Recovering a Sense of Safety. I think being in that messy, imperfect state that I'm talking about, really, truly the flow state, requires us to let go of control, and we need to feel like safe to do that. And I really didn't. I didn't feel safe to let go in that, to step out. And I think the inner kiddo that I was talking about before, like my inner kiddo did not feel safe, was like, oh, you're going to be made fun of, or that's ridiculous or weird was always a word I had to reclaim. And of course, now I think everything I make feels weird. Weird is a wonderful word. I mean, look at Labyrinth and these movies I named. Like, there's such free-flowing lack of judgment in that. Those were the things I always liked, but I was so cripplingly scared of that.
Yeah. And it sounds like you've overcome a lot in your personal journey. And thank you for sharing that piece of yourself with us.
Thanks for asking.
Yeah. Yeah. We're going to pivot just a little bit.
Great.
You live in a multicultural city. What are some places that bring you inspiration? And also, what's a great restaurant for anyone visiting your area?
Oh my gosh. For all of Los Angeles, this is a tough. I will say my favorite spot, because I'm bringing up what fills up my well in nature. There's this beautiful retreat called the Lake Shrine in West Los Angeles, sort of hidden up in the hills. People need to make a reservation. And it's this beautiful lake shrine built around a temple that honors all religions. And you will see like plaques for every religion there. Totally non-denominational meditation space where it's silent and you're out in nature around this lake. And there are swans and a waterfall, and it's just like tucked away in LA. It's amazing. Hmm.
That sounds very cool.
That's the best. And my favorite restaurant, it's tough. This is the one where you're like, should I say it? Because I don't want to blow up. It's this house. It's just this little yellow house in Venice. And it is some of, if not the best Italian food I have had outside of Italy. It's this red beet pasta with fondue cheese and this amazing sauce. And it's called barrique, and it's phenomenal.
That sounds really interesting.
Hmm.
I actually really like beets, so I think that'd be super tasty.
It's really surprisingly phenomenal. Yeah.
Another question that doesn't have anything to do with acting or Reiki. If we snuck a peek into your music collection, what are some things that we would find on rotation right now?
Right now, let's see, right now, I mean, Chapel Roan, like just constantly, I could listen to the album on repeat. And with that same, the whole album, Maggie Rogers. I really want to see Maggie Rogers live. And I love, just speaking of like creativity, that video that went viral that really got her record deal of Pharrell, just listening to her just after music school in New York. I've watched that so many times. I don't know. There's something about seeing someone see or receive your artistry, like him listening to her music and get that lit up about it. I find it so inspiring, and I love every song of hers.
Nice. Yeah, I'm a big fan of like female singer-songwriters.
Hmm.
It is a thing.
It is a thing, and we need more of it. Thank you.
Yes, 100%. How has your life in the creative arts been different than you imagined?
I suppose when I've lived out in Los Angeles 20 years, I was telling you, 20 years ago, again, I really had tunnel vision around acting, I would say. And it was since I was a young kid, I was like, I'm going to be an actor. It was the dream. And what really surprised me in doing all of these modalities myself is like letting go of this idea that the dream is one thing or one path, and realizing for me, living the creative life is this nonlinear, constantly changing path. And only in embracing that was I really ready to let go, I think, of the either or thinking or the extremes that I would go to. Like, to be completely honest, I never would date other actors. I would say, well, that's not going to be a thing if I actually want to someday maybe get married or have a kid or whatever. And what happened? I married the only actor I ever dated. So I had these ideas, I think, that probably I couldn't be a mom or couldn't do these things. And again, would never have written if I had clung so tightly, like white knuckled this idea of what the dream was, instead of realizing I think the path is constantly changing. And again, if we're following our own intuition, letting that be and realizing just being a creative is being so much more nonlinear and trusting that. Yeah.
Oh, that's excellent. And I love that you gave, examples of how you had a never statement in your life, and then it was the opposite. It shows such a big difference in how our lives turn out, right?
Exactly. I had so many, I think, perceived rules, limitations, and things. And of course, as soon as that opened up, the universe is tricksy. And I was very surprised where I ended up.
Yep.
Mm.
What is the biggest sector of creativity that you're curious about right now?
I was curious about. It's very interesting. Look, curious may not be the exact word, but speaking of these things, I also love sci-fi. I'm always future tripping and all of that. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens with AI, especially after everything that's happened out here for us and striking this year in actors, but realizing like it's an inevitability. And a lot of people are already using it in beautiful ways as writers, just to like spur ideas, to shift things up. So I am totally a novice. I know very little about it, but I'm very curious to see what happens, because it's going to be a whole new world.
Very true. Very true. I feel like it's kind of like the internet. Like now that it's around, like it's gonna be around, and people are not going to always recall life before it.
Yes. God, I cannot imagine if the internet just went down now, what people would do.
Yeah. Or life before sliced bread, you know?
That's right.
What are some of the best resources that you can recommend for someone who wants to go either into acting or even into the Reiki path?
Well, for acting, I should think what you're doing, there are so many phenomenal, I'm a big podcaster, so many phenomenal podcasts with people giving away great tips, resources that are easily accessible. You know, if you cannot take an acting class or you're not somewhere, listen to these people who are just sharing for free, let alone buying their books and all of that. But also, you know, some of my favorite teachers out here, some revered teachers I know of, they still do Zoom classes, which again, I think is so amazing. You could live somewhere that you never dreamed of being an actor and be taking a class now live with some renowned teacher in Los Angeles or somewhere else. So if that calls to you, again, intuition ping, I would tell everyone to follow it. But I think listening to these podcasts would be it. And in truth, find your community right where you are and just start acting. If you want to be acting, again, art is a verb to me. Like get your friends together and do a play reading in your living room. I think the simple answer is to just show up and start doing it. That's how we actually learn and grow and heal and push past the judgments that I was describing I had of myself, and the perfectionism is like, just start doing it with the community where you are.
I love that.
And for Reiki, I would say the same. To be honest, you know, for anyone that, you know, isn't so aware, people know the word, but Reiki is just life force energy. And again, tapping back into that. Anyone can do Reiki. You do not have to be like a Reiki master and aligned. I have a free course. Anyone's welcome to go on our website and email just to get simple tips on how to do that on yourself. So even if signing up for courses or something isn't accessible right now, start tapping in to bringing that energy with your hands back to your own body and feeling into that. And there are a lot of great free resources online about it.
Excellent. Before we go to our last question, I really wanted to pivot to imposter syndrome and just get your thoughts on that, because that can be a very large topic.
As I like rolled my eyes when you said it because it's so big. I know. I actually was just talking about that as well in group yesterday. It's such an interesting verbiage that comes up with that imposter syndrome. Like, imposter of what is what I would tell everyone to question with that. Or the question for me, because I absolutely have it and had it to such a crippling degree that I wouldn't risk or create anything like I was describing. But once we check in with why am I doing this or who am I doing this for, I think something can start to shift. You know, very much a lot of my energy, it was external, especially as an actor, trying to prove something when I walked into an audition room or just in general to the world. The goal of what success means to me now is very different because I let go of all that proving energy. So I think once we start to question, just ask questions and dissolve that, we'll see my ego brain definitely has like, I mean, I'm writing a book. I don't know, Tammy, what I'm even doing. Like, I never thought I would write a book. It doesn't mean that I don't have these limiting beliefs pop up, but I can see them sooner. I can like question them, let them metabolize and pivot and keep moving forward. So for me, that was the big thing is we just have to ask new questions around it and those limiting beliefs. And then once it's in our consciousness, for me at least, it starts to dissolve or we just see it sooner. Like instead of this monster in the closet, it's just little gnats that show up and fly around my head and I can just like swat them away now.
Excellent. Yeah, I feel like most everybody has imposter syndrome at one point in life about something, you know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's so important too, to like normalize it. Like we were just saying, this is why we need community too, to be like, you're not alone. I seriously doubt if you have Meryl Streep on your podcast, she'd be like, I never get imposter syndrome. Like being on Only Murders in the Building, we were just talking about before we started, like showing up for any new process. It doesn't matter what we get to. I think we have to have that beginner's mindset, growth mindset, as Dr. Carol Dweck called it, over and over and over again to combat that imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm. I'm a big fan of like growth mindset, just being open to learning, being open to, you know, sharing what you know and collaborating with people, you know, whether it's on a job or on a project or, you know, just jamming with friends, you know, or like you're writing a book, and I'm sure that there's opportunities for collaboration there, you know, like it's just so important to just be open, you know?
Yeah, what you just described is so important then, because if I had stayed in the imposter syndrome and hadn't done this, we're really shutting ourselves off from the beautiful side of criticism. Like we feel when we want critique from a fellow artist that helps us, that they want to be of service, and it's coming from that sense and like a loving place instead of the critic in my brain or the idea of criticism that was so scary to me for so long.
Mhm. I have absolutely thoroughly enjoyed getting to know you. We've got one final question, and take all the time you need. In your own words, what does living a creative life mean to you?
Living a creative life to me means trusting my intuition. If I trust my intuition, I really feel like I up an antenna. I get inspiration and imagination hits. And to be honest, once they come, I can't ignore it. I really want to create the thing. It feels again like that life force energy. So if I can just up the antenna and trust my own intuition, I think there's an abundant well of creativity in all of us and just trusting that and tapping in.
Nice. That's beautiful. I absolutely loved having you on the show. Listeners, please check the show notes to learn more about Barbara and her courses and her offerings. And as always, thanks for listening. Thanks for listening to the podcast. Like the show? Have a question? Stop by the Facebook and Instagram pages. Links are in the show notes, or search for Creative Piecemeal Podcast on social media and click follow for all the latest.